Hello, my name is Kirioth, and today we are going to take a look at some absolutely insane chaos stuff from the first day of Warhammer Fest. So the first day of Warhammer Fest Online 2022, or whatever, I think that's the full title, isn't it? Right, I think I got that one, and then immediately just sold myself down the river by doubting my own inability to read. It was yesterday, and they showed off a shed load of chaos stuff. Don't worry, we are going to talk about the Squat Trike. That's going to be its own thing, though, because that's interesting. Okay, anyway, let's have a look at some absolutely just mental chaos goings on, right? There is so much stuff here that I looked at and went, I like this, but I think I like it because it's something I would make. I think it was genuinely quite a strong showing, and we're going to start out with new possessed Chaos Space Marines. Some of these I think are really nicely done. There's a nice balance here, I think, between like the Galvorback approach from the Horus Heresy and your current Chaos Space Marines that have been possessed, which don't look anywhere nearly as good as the ones that you can get via the Galvorback. These, I think, hit a nice middle ground between the two. I do like some more than others. I will say that for some reason, like the bare flesh upper thigh, which is on a couple of these, I'm not that much of a fan of. This guy is absolutely solid. This is great. That is disgusting. Big crab claw on one arm. Nice callback to the old like club arm on the other there. It looks a lot more dangerous and a lot more like lengthy. That had potential for going into weird territory. Also, it's surrounded by tentacles, so we could just get extra hentai with it, but we're not going to. I quite like this because there's like a nice nod to a previous model. The helmet is absolutely gross. He's grown a second eye. There's like a horn coming out the side of his face. That is a really nicely done possessed Chaos Space Marine. This guy, similarly, I really, really like. The only thing is, I'm not sure about the legs on this one. I would like to see the armour being more like folded into the flesh on this dude's legs, because you've got, in the midriff, you've got flesh with cabling going through it, right? It's like the flesh has grown over the armour, or like the armour has become flesh, but there's still mechanical components attached within. The legs don't look like that. The legs look like they are purely organic, but they've got armour plates strapped to the outside of them. That's a weird shift between the two, especially when you look at things like the Power Pack, where you've got very clearly like organic claws holding the exhaust vents. There's like a weird split of like design decision there, where it's like the upper half has got that morphing between metal and flesh, but the lower half just doesn't have it, which, I don't know, it feels a bit weird to me. That being said, I do really like the weapon arm, whatever the hell that is, like the big claws made out of bone that have come out of the bicep. That's a really cool look. Again, the helmet's really cool. Overall, the upper half of this model I really like. It's just, it feels like a separate model from like the waist down, if that makes sense. And the thing is, this guy has absolutely nailed it in terms of that, because there is a bit of the armour being strapped on at the bottom, but then it also looks like the armour plates are attached to the hooves because the hooves have grown out of them, and you still have that cabling running through one of the legs. That's a bit closer. That's what I kind of would have liked to have seen more of, I guess, just overall for this whole unit. But they are a vast improvement. They're a vast improvement on what we currently have. And from what I understand, these are on 40mm bases. So the greater possessed that we got when the Chaos Space Marines had their like first sort of range refresh, they are now just possessed. The old, small, stumpy possessed are going away, and these are just possessed now. I just want to say that this guy's axe and midriff are both absolutely disgusting. The axe looks like it's got flesh growing over the side of it, which is gross, but his middle looks like his intestines have sort of stretched up and over his stomach, but there's metallic tubing underneath. That's awful. I love it. It's fantastic. And this lad is my absolute favourite. Absolute favourite here. I love it. That's great. What the hell is that Soul Calibur-esque? Like, he's got a kind of like a sort of soul edge thing going on one arm, which I really like. The flames coming out of the eye sockets of the organic vents on the Power Pack is awful. Fantastic. Yeah, overall, I think these are super solid. There's like just little things here and there that I would have liked to see just slightly different, but as a unit, as a group, they are such a vast upgrade on what we have currently. They are way less derpy. They're a lot closer to the Galvorback, which are my like gold standard for possessed Chaos Space Marines. There's a lot of detailing. I don't think these are too busy. Given what they are, I don't think they're all that bad. I think they're pretty reasonable. There's a nice amount of variety, and there's a nice shift between the ones that have still got some kind of external weapons and the ones that have got organic weapons that are growing out of them. There's a good mix of parts. There's everything is a similar style, but it's not all exactly the same. I think they've done a decent job with these, honestly. Now, next up, before we get into the absolute insanity that is the rest of the cultists, we have new cultists, and I'm split. I'm split. I really like the bodies of these. They look great. They look like cultists. They look like kind of partially armoured, but mostly just normal clothes. You've got a mix of shoddy melee weapons and just cheap as hell firearms. They have a nice mix of being kind of scarred up and using little bits of armour. They overall, I think, look really, really good. The weirdness for me comes in the choice for the heads. The heads feel very fantasy to me. They don't feel all that 40k. In fact, I feel like you could take this group out of 40k, you could put it into AOS, and just by changing one hand, you would have a completely solid, viable unit for Age of Sigmar. I like the heads, but I just don't know whether I like them on this unit, if that makes sense. I think overall they look pretty good. They're not that far off the Blackstone Fortress ones, which are great cultists. The Blackstone Fortress cultists are absolutely fantastic. These aren't that far off those. I would say probably I prefer the Blackstone Fortress ones. These are good, but I don't know why. I'm just not sure what the idea was with going with this really distinctive kind of masked, helmeted look for these guys is. I think it kind of takes away a little bit from the idea that these are otherwise normal mortals who are just worshipping the dark gods. It's just an interesting choice. It's weird because I don't dislike them. I don't think that the heads look bad or wrong or stupid or anything. I actually quite like the design of a lot of them. They're very menacing. They are super menacing, and I suppose in a way they kind of dehumanize them a little bit. Also, the last there that's got the bionic arm, shoulder, and bolted into the chest, that is hardcore, and I love it. It just seems slightly out of place, but I can't really tell you why. I think just chalk it up to one of those weird subjective biases where it's it doesn't necessarily make a huge amount of sense and you struggle to explain what the actual problem is, but it's there anyway. The thing is, it's not just the new Accursed Cultists, there's also Mutants for the Accursed Cultists, which look awful. This, there's some good body horror going on here, right? What the hell has happened to her arm? That's gross. There's a little, spider leg talon just growing out of one shoulder, which is terrible. These are awful, and I love them. That guy is having a bad day. Your face should not be on the top of your head, and yet that's where he is. These are this style I'm not so sure about. I don't know, that feels a bit more Cthulhu than anything else to me. There's just something about that where I was like, ooh, okay, that doesn't really fit with the rest of them, but it's still cool. I mean, tentacles and eyes you can't really go wrong with, to be fair, but it doesn't feel quite the same style somehow as the others. These are ridiculous and really gross, and I'm not sure why they decided to go for them, but I'm glad that they did. These to me look like some sort of Gellerfield accident, some sort of warp protection gone horribly wrong. Just that moment when things start to push through the flesh of the mortal crew on a ship. And I really like that, and I want that kind of thing to be explored more. The warp is an absolutely horrific place, full of horrific things, and if it gets hold of your, meat sack body, it's going to do awful stuff to you. These are a great representation of that, and even if there's some that I personally don't find that aesthetically pleasing, although I'd argue that maybe they're not supposed to be aesthetically pleasing, the fact that these exist at all, and the fact that they are embracing that kind of chaotic warp weirdness, the horror that is possession or being transformed by chaotic energies, I love that they're actually doing something with it outside of just possessed Chaos Space Marines. These are fantastic in that they've made them gross and unsightly and awful, and you can't look at them and go, yeah, that's cool, I'd love that to happen to me. No, you want to be preferably several miles away from these at all times, and that's great. Which is why you'll be unsurprised to learn I absolutely love the new Torments as well. I mean, these are effectively Chaos Spawn, that's what they are. But these are the Torments, and this thing, that's the thing that was in the silhouette for the article before we had Warhammer Fest. We guessed on that video that it would either be a new Jabberslythe, or, and I threw this in right at the end, having put in quite a lot of time, like, trying to sleuth my way into convincing you that it might be a new Jabberslythe. Right at the end, I was like, oh, it's just going to be like a possessed Chaos Space Marine or something. It's not quite a possessed Chaos Space Marine, but it is Chaos Space Marine related, and it is possessed related. So you know what? I'm taking that as a win. I'm going to say that I called that. It wasn't 100% dead on, and it was my second option, but I said it out loud. It's on, I was going to say it's on film, but what the hell? It's in a video, so I'm taking it. I'm calling that as a prediction. Gross. These are gross. They're fantastic. What the hell is the anatomy of this thing? Like, a massively muscular body just torn out of the back of this poor person. Like, look at the way the skin is like still attached, so the foot is still oh god. One massive leg with a smaller leg that's been like wrapped around, like the skin is still clinging on. It's awful, and I love it. This guy, I have to admit, I'm not as big a fan of as the other two. It feels, I think because this feels more structured, weirdly. Like, I know it sounds weird, it's still just it's got a guy having, it's being torn out of another dude, but it feels like there's less extraneous weirdness going on. And while you can have too much extraneous weirdness, I will admit that perhaps it's possible to go overboard with extraneous weirdness. I really like the other two so much that this one feels almost a little bit tame in comparison, which is a bit mad to say because look at it, it's clearly not tame. There's like a massive muscle beast demon that is just emerging out of this poor sod's, like left shoulder blade? So clearly, also the fact that he has got like he's got the metal spike on one arm and then the metal spike on the other leg to make this thing balance. This, weirdly, it feels too planned out for me. Like, the overall feel of the other two is so chaotic and bizarre, and it's so just out of nowhere. They're just like, well, they've just torn out of these things mid-fight. That the other one, having that kind of pre-planned, okay, well, we need to stick something in his leg or he's not going to be able to walk properly, that doesn't have quite the same impact to me, personally. Whereas this absolute monster, with his leg tearing out of the dude's other leg, and all the skin still clinging to it, and these two especially, they just hit the right level of creepy and weird for me. They feel more chaotic, it feels more unpredictable, like you wouldn't be able to guess that this is how that person ends up. This one has an element of pre-planning to it, and so it just doesn't have the same, like, visceral impact. That being said, again, the fact that these exist at all, I'm well happy about. I love these. I think this is fantastic. Give us more of that horrific warp exposure, like, body horror. Because this is grand. Now, for even more excitement, there's also a Cultist HQ option as well now. So this is the Dark Commune. Some of these look old school Chaos AF. Like, that dude with the big sword at the back. I do like the lass with the creepy staff with the fleshy bit on the top. Also, very big hat. Again, feels quite old school. There's also the fleshy tentacle hand coming out of a third sleeve, because you got to make sure to accommodate for your fleshy tentacle hand. She is cool. The icon bearer, that is a solid icon. You can see why he needs the extra tentacles to hold that up, because that must weigh an absolute ton. Like, that must seriously be a pain to carry around the battlefield. It feels quite raw. Like, if you look at the spikes on the icon, they're not smooth. They're all, like, jagged and misshapen. It looks like something that has been, like, forged just before the battle or something. It looks quite rough and ready, which I really like. I really like that about that. There's another one of the guards with the giant swords, but, come on, the best part of this squad, it's got to be that Psyker. That Psyker, hell yes. That is a Psyker's head with the spinal column still attached, that is on, like, a weird, like, chaos magic floating platform that is plumbed into the dude behind it, so that Psyker's head is being kept alive by the bodily fluids and essence of the lad who's walking behind it. That is quality. That is absolutely quality. Hands down, that is the best model in this group. That is grim, it's gross, absolutely fantastic. That's 10 out of 10. That is 10 out of 10 for me. Absolutely love that. Love it. We've got a nice little group shot showing a bunch of the new stuff together. You'll note that the the possessed are Terminator-sized. Absolutely love it. Massive. Massive and terrifying. That's what you want. That's what you want out of you possessed. There he is. There's Club Lad. Loving his work. Absolutely great. Finally, we've got a new Daemon Prince. So that Daemon Prince that we saw for AOS is in fact a multi-part kit that does both AOS and 40k. Now, the sheer amount of customization here, right? The only things that are the same on this Daemon Prince are the upper legs. That's it. You've got the Kai gun. Look at that. You've got the Kai gun. Love it. Just the fact that is on there, fantastic. So you've got the Kai gun, you've got a big old demon blade, you've got the power pack on the back, totally different head, totally different chest, totally different shoulders, and no hooves. Instead, you've got clawed feet. So this thing has got a bunch of different bits with it. Like, there's so much customizability going on here. I made the comment that when we looked at the AOS Daemon Prince that you could probably make it 40k if you wanted to stick a bunch of wives and stuff all over it. But, you know, this is going to do both, this kit. Just the customization it's fantastic. This is closer to that old metal Daemon Prince that I had back in 3rd than any of the others have been so far. Like, this is it's not exactly the same, right? It's still missing a few things that I love about that old model. But for the most part, I think this is the closest to a desirable replacement that I have. Like, the plastic Daemon Prince they currently do has just never done it for me. There's lots of options with it, but I've always felt like they're always a bit lackluster, and none of them had the charm or, like, the presence of that older Daemon Prince. This is way closer to that for my money. So we've got some nice close-ups. I really do like that power pack. The fact that it's asymmetrical as well, like one side has just been grown further out than the other, that's cool. Also got a massive claw option, so, I mean, I'm guessing we'll have double claw options? Ah, it's so good. The various skulls hanging off, the little detail of one of them still being a fleshy head, that one having that, like, band of metal across the front over the top of the head is cool. Also, customizability in terms of faces. So you've got your Khorne option, your Nurgle option, your Tzeentch option, and your Slaanesh option. So there's, like, at least 6 heads in this thing, because there's the one for AOS, there's the one for 40k, although you could interchange those two, and then you've got god-specific choices as well. I love that they've put that much thought into it, that they've given that much customization for the individual gods. That's fantastic. And I will say, I actually really like the Slaanesh head. I think that looks cool. Now, there was one other thing, but there's nothing in terms of models, and that is that they have confirmed the World Eaters Codex. We kind of had an inkling it was coming, we knew it was going to be a thing, but they have confirmed that it's going to be on its way. They've said that there's not going to be World Eaters in the upcoming Chaos Space Marines Codex, which is on the way, because they're going to get their own Codex, but there will be a White Dwarf thing, so you can still play your World Eaters armies. They've just confirmed that that's happening, but they've not shown anything off specifically. So those of you who've been waiting hungrily for that, you are going to finally get your dues. Ever since the Khorne Demonkin Codex, you've been wondering where it's been. Well, it's on the way now, which will mean that Nurgle and Tzeentch and Khorne all have their codexes. So if you could maybe do something with Slaanesh after that, that'd be lovely. He says, completely biased because Emperor's Children are his favourite. Anyway, that is the Chaos stuff from day 1 of Warhammer Fest. Is there anything in there that particularly tickled your fancy? Anything that you absolutely love the look of? Are you as happy with the new Daemon Prince as I am, especially since it's got the Kai gun? No, I'm not going to shut up about it, because I have the metal one in front of me right now, and it has that gun on it, and I'm just happy to see it back. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. In the meantime, feel free to click all the things, Patreon videos, subscribe, all that stuff. Click it if you like, don't if you don't want to. And as always, there's an affiliate link in the description for Element Games, which you can use to support the channel if you like. I leave it in your capable hands. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.